In this video, I'm going to show you detailed step-by-step instructions on how to replace the screen on the iPhone XS. We'll begin the repair like all iPhone repairs, removing the two pentalobe screws from the bottom of the phone. Now we're going to take a single-sided razor blade and we're going to insert it in the little gap between the edge of the chassis and the edge of the screen. Make sure that you go for the plastic edge rather than the bit between the glass and the plastic. Make sure it's the bit between the plastic and the metal. And once you've made a gap in there, we're just going to pry it upwards a little bit so we can insert this plastic guitar pick into the gap, and then we're going to slide that through to separate the screen from the chassis. I'm going to work my way around the two long edges and the bottom edge now, and that will mean that we can lift it up from the bottom, give it a little wiggle, and it opens up just like opening a book from the back cover. It'd be a good idea at this point to put a heavy object like a mug behind the screen so that you can free up the two hands of yours. And then I'll take my tri-wing screwdriver and remove all the screws that are holding down this shield just here. Just making note that the middle one, or the long one just here, is actually a crosshead screw. So we'll get that out of the way as well. There's two screws missing from the shield which we'll replace at the end of the job. Making sure you use a plastic tool at this point. Use your spudger to disconnect the battery to isolate power from the phone. Then using the pointed end, we're going to lift up this cable down here, and then this cable just up here for the ear speaker. We can now release the screen and we'll put that to one side whilst we prepare the chassis for the new seal. Use your tweezers to get started and begin pulling the old seal away from the edges of the frame. Continue working on your way around, peeling off as much of the adhesive as you possibly can. Sometimes it's a little bit more stubborn, but generally if it's the original adhesive, you can just pull it away by sort of stretching it out. Once all the adhesive's removed, we're going to run a bead of isopropyl alcohol along the edge, and then using a cleaning brush, clean away any of the excess adhesive, dirt and grime. Be careful when you're working on this top area where the camera and the Face ID sensor is, because if you do knock this little dot projector here, it can render Face ID useless. Most replacement screens that you buy now will come with one of the replacement dust and moisture resistant seals. Peel off the back sheet and then place it onto the edge of the phone. I always start in one corner, line it up along one edge, and then the rest of it should just fall into place quite nicely. Once you've got it installed, use the back edge of the plastic spudger to make sure that it's pushed down nicely and secure onto the chassis. You can now peel off the top sheet, and it will leave behind one last layer of plastic film which we'll leave on until the very end of the repair. Now we're going to get the broken screen at this point, and we use the tri-wing screwdriver to remove the 3 screws. Although it's the same again, there's one missing on this one. So in my case, I'm going to remove 2, but there will be another screw there on your device. And then these can be difficult to remove sometimes, but as you can see, this one's not a good example. But you have to unfold the ear speaker just like that. Then apply some heat to this area here to soften the adhesive. And then using some tweezers, you can lift out the proximity sensor, ambient light sensor, and microphone from the little plastic jig what it sits in. With that removed, we can now discard the broken screen. Then take our new screen. We're using an aftermarket soft OLED one. I will put the link in the description below. Remove any plastic films that sit on the back of the screen, and then we're going to line up this ambient light sensor first. That one's usually the easiest one to get in. Then the proximity sensor, and finally the microphone. We'll secure that down and then fold over the ear speaker again and re-secure the 3 screws that hold that guy down. Now that I've got a replacement screw, we'll install the other 2 tri-wing screws. Now that our new screen is prepared, we can now offer up the connector for the OLED display, which goes in here, followed by the touch, which is the bottom one here. I always find this one to be a little bit awkward, so what I'll tend to do is use my tweezers just to secure it into place. And then finally, we've got the ear speaker and front sensor flex cable. Line that up, and then same again, make sure that they're secured down good, If any of the other flex cables come loose, make sure that you re-secure those as well. And now at this point, I'm going to reconnect the battery, and I recommend that you test the screen that you're using before you start sealing it back up. But for the purpose of the video, I'll continue with the reassembly by placing the shield over the connectors and then re-securing the 5 screws that hold down the shield. Just remember that the long one goes in the middle here. Don't try and put it in any of the other holes because you can damage the motherboard by doing that. With those screws re-secured, I'm just going to make a little note for you here to make sure that this cable gets tucked in down the side of the battery like that, so that it's not going to snag on anything when we close up the screen. And then I'm going to peel off the final layer of the dust and moisture resistant seal. Sometimes the seal will peel up a little bit, so if you get the plastic spudger like that and then pull it up with it. Now that everything's secured down, just have a final check to make sure that all the screws are in, there's no loose screws kicking about or anything like that, and you can just fold the screen down the same way as we opened it, and then we're going to line up the top of the screen, make sure that that secures into the chassis, and with it like that, we can just give it a little squeeze to close it up there. And then when you're closing up this bit, just make sure that the flex cable is tucked away for the screen. We can now reinstall those 2 pentalobe screws at the bottom. And that just about completes the repair of this iPhone XS. Thank you for watching and see you next time.